Yuan'an returning home. If your resolve is to return home, then board the boat that ferries o'er the 5 lakes. Raise the boat pole, stars and moon are hidden. Stop the oar, the sun is alone. Slip the moorage and leave the baneful shore. Hoist the sail and set off on the true way. So we go back to Buddhist monks as poets. So this translation that we've read was done by Andy Ferguson and is part of the book Zen's Chinese Heritage, The Masters and Their Teachings. So let's start with the author of the poem, Yuan'an, also known as Luopu Yuan'an. So he was a Buddhist Chan monk. Chan is more commonly known by its Japanese name Zen, although it was born in China and then exported to Japan later on. And he lived in the 9th century. His dates are approximately 835, 899, that is, the late Tang. And he was from the north of China, from Lingyou, very close to the capital area. His brother also joined a local monastery where Yuan'an also stayed for a time, the Huayan Monastery. He learned under different masters, including Linji Yishuan, better known again by his Japanese name Rinzai, and as the founder of the Rinzai Zen sect, which is quite popular in Japan, or at least was popular during the Kamakura period, and lots of the fancy Buddhist temples in Kyoto and in Kamakura, I think, belong to this sect. Anyway, Yuan'an later moved south to the area of Hunan in the south of the country and dwelt in Luopu Mountain and also in Sushi. And from dwelling in Luopu Mountain is where he gets his how, Luopu Yuan'an. So Yuan'an, apart from being a Buddhist monk, was famous not so much as a poet, but, as Chan masters usually use a lot of poetry and equivocation and riddles and paradoxes in their teaching. And he was well known for the single verses that he often used as obfuscating answers to the questions posed to him. The poem that we've read is part of an anecdote which we'll read in a minute. But like pure poetry, he has 2 songs, Ge, the Song of the Floating Bubbles, and the Song of the Sword of the Spirit, which are interesting texts. I haven't chosen any of them for reading because, well, one of them I don't have at hand and the other is a bit too long. But the long one is interesting. It's not a she, evidently. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's mostly heptasyllabic lines, rambling and quite long, but it's an interesting poem because it uses Buddhist allusions with the language also of martial art and violent combat. The sword of the poem is not a physical sword; it's like the Buddhist esoteric practice that allows one to achieve enlightenment and to cut the delusions of the world. But anyway, back to the poem that we've read. This was its context. Let me read the whole anecdote. A monk asked Zen Master Luopu, "What if I want to return to my country home?" Luopu said, "The houses are demolished and the people are dead. To where would you return?" The monk said, "In that case, I won't go back." Luopu said, "The sun melts the snow at the front of the courtyard, but who will sweep the dust that has drifted into the room?" Luopu then recited the following verse, and that's the poem that we've read before, which I've called Returning Home. So, again, as typical in Chinese poetry, there's at least 2 layers of meaning, the literal and the metaphorical, and more so in a poem that was meant to have a didactic meaning in the context of an exchange with a Buddhist monk, in which the Buddhist monk's images, the other monks, are already coded and meant to be read differently from their literal meanings. So the poem on the face of it is a poem on returning home and depicting a trip by boat crossing the lakes. and reaching the right way home. Of course, it's a poem about Buddhist illumination. So, like the poem, as we said, starts with the monk's question, what if I want to return to my country home? So, probably, the monk is not really asking about returning to his native village or family home, but like this return home probably refers to something like seeking comfort, retreating into habit, reverting to prior mental or spiritual states. That is, a move away from the path of awakening, which for Buddhists in general, but particularly for the Zen sect, requires constant presence, risk, and abandonment of attachment. In Luopu's first reply, the houses are demolished and the people are dead. To where would you return? There's no going back, and don't feel a little bit harsh. The home is not the physical home. It's this the home that doesn't exist is, spiritual and psychological. His houses are demolished. The structures of identity, comfort, ego, past habit have been broken down. People are dead. Whatever ties or illusions the monk had to family, to friends, to his previous self have been left behind. He's saying there's no going back, not because you can't, but because the you who might return no longer exists in the same way. And what you'd be returning to is an illusion. So, this matches a lot of Buddhist philosophy about the essential impermanence of all things, including the self. And again, it rhymes with some Western developments. Heraclitus, you never cross the same river twice. Anyway, the monk has received the lesson. He answers, in that case, I won't go back. But Luopu's reply doesn't seem to praise him or confirm his answer. So this I won't go back might be, a bit too intellectual or safe. So the monk is not going to go back to his attachments, but in typical Buddhist sophistry, attaching to not returning is itself an attaching. It's itself a form of clinging. So probably that's why Luopu tests further with the sun melts the snow at the front of the courtyard, but who will sweep the dust that has drifted into the room? And so we have two images: the sun melting the snow, could probably be read as like nature taking care of the obvious external problems, but there's still dust in the room. Yeah, the remnants of attachment, of ego, of thought need conscious effort to clear. So Luopu, Yuan'an's colleague, might have left the world behind, the snow melting, but might not have done the inner work, clearing the dust, the lingering, subtle afflictions of his own mind. Yeah? Even after awakening, the room still gathers dust. And finally we get the poem. Yeah? Luopu then recited the following verse. So again, let's take a look at the poem line by line. It's pretty short, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines. First line, as I said, on the face of it, it's describing a journey, but it's more of a spiritual than a physical journey. First couplets. I think they're couplets. I don't have the Chinese characters here, but anyway. First couplet, if your resolve is to return home, then board the boat that ferries o'er the 5 lakes. So, we return home, but now returning home, I think, is more like not going back to worldly attachments, but embarking on the true journey to one's original nature and the true home of awakening. So there's a shift here. No longer home is going back to old practices. Now home is the enlightened state. And the poet tells the monk to board the boat that ferries over the 5 lakes. So these might be real lakes, but you can also interpret them metaphorically. 5 is a number that has lots of meanings in a lot of traditions. In Buddhism, 5, for example, connects with the 5 skandhas: form, sensation, perception, mental formations, consciousness, all of which must be transcended. Okay, so you're ferrying, second couplet, raise the boat pole, stars and moon are hidden, stop the oar, the sun is alone. So we have this backdrop, if you wish, of these elements. And there is a contrast. Raising the pole seems to hide the stars and the moon. Stopping the oar seems to present the sun in its alone loftiness. So, as you act, like raising the pole, all conceptual lights vanish. The symbols of guidance of the past are no longer effective now for your push to enlightenment. You enter the unknown. You stop the oar, the sun is alone. When effort ceases, the true nature, in this case the sun, shines unobscured. Last couplet, slip the moorage and live the baneful shore. Hoist the sail and set off on the true way. So the poem finishes with, a very strong couplet of really break from everything. Let go of attachments, of ignorance, of the baneful shore of samsara, of the world, of past habits and customs, of past clingings, and begin the journey towards total awakening. So overall, quite an interesting Buddhist piece to add to our collection.